The fire station stood like a fortress of steel and smoke, its doors wide open to the restless city beyond. For Ethan Cole, it felt less like walking into a workplace and more like stepping into another world, a world humming with energy, banter, and the faint, lingering scent of burnt rubber and adrenaline. His boots echoed against the concrete floor as he entered, clutching his new helmet under one arm, his pulse beating like a distant siren that he had dreamed of this for years, earning the badge, saving lives, belonging to something bigger. Yet now, standing in the middle of Station 42, all he could feel was the weight of expectation pressing down on his chest. "New recruit?" a voice asked. Ethan turned. A tall man with a neatly trimmed beard and eyes sharp as polished glass stood a few steps away. The insignia on his chest read Captain M. Hale. "Yes, sir." Ethan Cole, reporting for duty. Captain Marcus Hale extended his hand. His grip was firm, confident, but something about it lingered a fraction longer than formality allowed. Ethan caught a faint scent of smoke and cedarwood. Their eyes met briefly, just a flicker, and something unspoken passed between them, quick as a spark. Marcus's gaze broke away first. "Welcome to Station 42, Cole. Let's see if you can keep up." The words were simple, but the tone carried both challenge and curiosity. Throughout the morning, Ethan was introduced to the rest of the crew: Jake, loud and good-natured; Darren, always joking; and Luis, quiet but observant. They ribbed Ethan about being the rookie, laughing as he fumbled with gear and protocol. Yet underneath their teasing was a sense of fraternity, something real, something Ethan craved. Still, he could feel Marcus's eyes on him from across the bay, measuring him, evaluating. Every time their gazes met, Ethan felt an unfamiliar heat rise in his chest, one that had nothing to do with the sweltering room. Later, during the first training drill, Marcus watched closely as Ethan dragged the heavy fire hose across the lot. "Keep your stance wide," Marcus called. "You're strong, but strength means nothing without balance." He moved behind Ethan, adjusting his grip on the hose. Their arms brushed, just a brief, fleeting contact, but Ethan froze for half a breath. "Like that," Marcus said quietly, stepping back. His voice carried something softer now, something almost human beneath the discipline. When the drill ended, the others clapped Ethan on the back, congratulating him. He smiled, but his focus drifted toward Marcus, who was already walking away, barking orders, pretending that moment hadn't existed. That evening, they responded to their first call together, a two-story apartment blaze in the South District. Smoke towered over the skyline, glowing orange against the night. The team moved like a single machine. Ethan followed Marcus's commands with absolute precision. Inside the suffocating heat, he found a trapped child hiding beneath a desk and carried her out to safety. When the fire was finally subdued and the sirens faded, Ethan stood beside the truck, sweat and ash streaking his face. Marcus approached him silently. "You did well," Marcus said, voice low. "Not many rookies keep their head in that kind of chaos." "Thank you, sir." Ethan managed a tired smile. Marcus's eyes lingered again, too long, too deep. Then he said, almost to himself, "Courage suits you, Cole." Before Ethan could reply, one of the men called for the captain. Marcus turned sharply and walked away, his authority snapping back into place like a shield. Back at the station, the others celebrated with laughter and stories. Ethan joined in, but his thoughts stayed elsewhere, on the captain's eyes, his voice, the quiet approval that had meant more than any applause. Later that night, when the dormitory lights dimmed and the city outside hummed with distant sirens, Ethan lay on his bunk staring at the ceiling. He could still hear Marcus's voice in his mind, low and steady, still feel the echo of that brief touch during training that he told himself it was nothing: respect, mentorship, the kind of bond forged between men who risked their lives together. But deep down, he knew better. The fire they'd put out tonight was gone, reduced to smoke and memory. Yet something else had ignited quietly, dangerously, between them, something no amount of water could extinguish. As Ethan drifted toward sleep, he wondered if Marcus was thinking about it too. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance, rising and falling like a warning, and for the first time since joining the station, Ethan wasn't sure if he was saving people, or about to need saving himself. Days turned into weeks, and the air between us thickened with everything we didn't say. What had begun as glances and silences became something heavier, unsustainable. Daniel's eyes no longer met mine with ease. His voice, once warm, now carried restraint. Every word we exchanged seemed weighed down by what had already happened and what still lingered unsaid. That I avoided his floor whenever I could, trading shifts or finding excuses to clean elsewhere. But fate, or maybe weakness, had its own plans. One afternoon, the elevator doors opened, and there he was, impeccably dressed as always, though the color had drained from his face. "Ethan," he said softly. "Can we talk?" I hesitated before nodding. Inside his apartment, the space felt colder than I remembered. The curtains were half drawn, the scent of wine replaced by something faintly bitter, perhaps the smell of a life beginning to fracture. "She knows," he said simply. It took me a moment to understand. "Sophia?" He nodded, pressing a hand to the back of his neck. "She found a message I never sent. Something I wrote and deleted, or thought I deleted. She didn't say much, but she knows enough." The room seemed to shrink around us. Guilt clawed at my chest, hot and relentless. "I never wanted, I know," he interrupted, his voice raw. "Neither did I. He turned toward the window, staring out at the city where dusk was beginning to fall. You were supposed to be a distraction, he said quietly. A kindness. I didn't mean for it to become. He stopped himself, the rest of the sentence dissolving into the air. Something real, I finished for him. His shoulders tensed, but he didn't deny it that we stood in silence for a long time. Outside, sirens echoed faintly in the distance. I thought of how everything had started, with a smile, a simple act of gratitude, and how easily it had spiraled into something neither of us could control. I should go, I said finally. He turned then, eyes shining with something I couldn't name, sorrow, perhaps, or the last flicker of affection. Ethan, please. Don't walk away like this. I have to, I said. It's not my life that's falling apart, Daniel, it's yours. You can still fix it. He shook his head. It's already too late for that. But I knew that wasn't true. He still had choices. I didn't. That night, I packed my few belongings from the staff room, uniforms, cleaning supplies, the small notebook where I kept my hours, and left them neatly folded by the supervisor's desk. There was no resignation letter, no explanation. Only quiet absence. The next morning, I returned to the building one last time to collect my final pay. The lobby gleamed as it always did, indifferent to the lives unraveling inside its walls. I avoided the penthouse floor, but as I stepped into the elevator, the doors slid open and Daniel was there, as if the universe refused to let us part without one final moment. That he looked exhausted, suit wrinkled, tie missing. His eyes met mine with a kind of fragile resignation. You're leaving, he said, though it wasn't a question. That I nodded. It's better this way. He stepped inside, and for a brief moment, the elevator doors closed us off from the rest of the world. The hum of the machinery filled the silence. I don't regret meeting you, he said finally. Even if everything else was a mistake. The honesty in his voice caught me off guard. Neither do I said softly. But some things aren't meant to last, Daniel. He smiled faintly, sad, accepting. Maybe not. Still. I wish I'd met you at a different time. When the doors opened on the ground floor, he didn't move. I stepped out first, turning back only once. That he stood there, motionless, watching me go. Outside, the city was bright with morning light. I walked without looking back, my reflection flashing briefly across each glass window I passed. For the first time in months, the air felt clean. That in the weeks that followed, I found work elsewhere, smaller places, simpler lives. But sometimes, when the rain hit the windows just right, I'd think of Daniel's apartment, of that night when he asked for help with a stain that never really came out. Maybe we were both trying to clean something far deeper than fabric, something neither of us had the tools to fix. That I don't hate him. I don't even wish things had been different. Some connections burn fast, leaving behind only the faint scent of smoke and memory that I was only the cleaning boy. But for a brief, impossible moment, he made me believe I was something more, and that belief, however fleeting, was both the beginning and the end of everything. The days that followed blurred into a careful routine, but Daniel could not shake the feeling that every moment carried hidden weight. He still laughed at Michael's dry jokes, still helped fold laundry, still joined him at Sunday dinners with Michael's parents. Yet beneath the surface, each action felt rehearsed, as if he were playing a role in a play where one wrong line could shatter the set. That he thought the guilt might dull with time, but instead, it sharpened. The silence between them, once merely dull, now pulsed with accusation. Every time Michael smiled without suspicion, Daniel felt both relief and dread. Relief that his secret remained buried, dread that he was building a life on a fault line that could erupt without warning. One evening, Daniel found himself staring at Michael as he read on the sofa, glasses perched lightly on his nose, a lamp casting a soft halo around him. Michael looked peaceful, almost boyish in his concentration. Daniel felt his throat close, the thought rising unbidden, I don't deserve him. The weight of that truth made him set down his drink, his hand trembling slightly. Later that night, he dreamt of Ethan. Not of the act itself, but of the way Ethan had looked at him across the bar, like he mattered, like he was still capable of sparking desire. When he woke, the image lingered, and Daniel wondered which haunted him more, the betrayal itself, or the fact that part of him longed for that validation again. At work, he struggled to focus. Deadlines slipped by, and colleagues noticed his distracted air. His sketches lacked their usual boldness, his presentation stumbled. When his manager asked if everything was all right, Daniel forced a smile and claimed he was just tired. It was the same lie he told Michael, the same mask he wore for everyone who couldn't see the fracture beneath. One night, while clearing away dinner plates, Michael asked casually, "Are you happy?" The question landed with such force that Daniel nearly dropped the dishes. He managed a laugh, shaky and forced. "Of course. Why wouldn't I be?" But Michael's eyes lingered on him, searching, as though he sensed a shift he couldn't name. Daniel retreated to the balcony afterward, the night air cool against his skin. He realized then that secrecy had a way of isolating, of fencing him off from the very person he lived with. Michael's presence was steady, but Daniel felt increasingly apart, as though the secret had built a wall invisible to anyone else. That he began to notice cracks in Michael too. The long hours, the exhaustion etched into his features, the way his laughter came less easily these days. Perhaps they had both been drifting long before Ethan entered the picture. Perhaps the betrayal was not the cause but the symptom of something neither had confronted, yet the thought offered no comfort. It only made the silence heavier. One weekend, they attended a friend's birthday party. Surrounded by chatter and clinking glasses, Daniel watched Michael interact with old university friends, animated and relaxed in a way Daniel hadn't seen in months. He realized with a pang that Michael was still capable of lightness, still capable of connection. The problem wasn't Michael alone, it was the distance Daniel had allowed to grow between them. Walking home, Michael slipped his arm through Daniel's, a gesture so familiar it nearly broke him. Daniel forced a smile, but inside, he was unraveling. He wanted to confess, to lay the truth bare and see whether their relationship could withstand the weight. But fear held him back. Fear of destroying what little remained, fear of becoming the villain in a story they had once built together. That night, lying awake again, Daniel understood something he hadn't before. The secret wasn't going away. It had embedded itself in their life, shaping his choices, coloring his thoughts, shadowing every tender moment. And unless he faced it, through confession, or change, or some reckoning yet unknown, it would consume not only his love for Michael but also the version of himself he still wanted to be. The echo of that night with Ethan no longer lived only in memory, it lived in every silence, every hesitation, every breath beside the man he loved.